Welcome back to Spoiler-Man Edge of Time, and it's time to end this
Oh yeah, it's part
with a free-fall
10,
section.
finale.
Well, thankfully, no, we skipped that, thankfully.
But it said that in the corner, it cannot be skipped.
In this corner, with a very torn up Peter Parker, we have our first opponent, Peter Parker versus Atrocity. Give it an applause, everyone.
Oh yeah,
To continue the duality thingy, the old duality theme. On one hand, Peter will fight Atrocity as the final boss, while Miguel will fight the CEO Peter on the other end of the spectrum. It's a nice idea on paper, but it makes the final boss fight in general a bit, chaotic.
So, let's ask ourselves the big question, folks. How is Peter, the guy who pretty much got wailed on by Anti-Venom, going to go up against what's essentially the fusion of Dr. Octopus, Anti-Venom, and Sloane, his worst enemy whatsoever, who the game kind of forgot about except for
Easy, use electricity, just like Miguel said.
Basically, yeah.
Planet Squid.
You know, you have to wonder why Miguel didn't just tell him that from the get-go, but...
Remember, blind playthrough, so I didn't actually knew what I was supposed to do, so he's like, oh, I can hit it now. Okay.
Right up the rear end.
Oh, Jesus. Ow. Something in a proper ragdoll physics, because it just tosses you in a very scripted way, unfortunately. Also, this was still the point where my control, the PS3 controller that I had around this time, was acting a bit up, meaning that even when I wanted to press a button, it was pressing like 3 others at the same time, meaning that it was not willing to cooperate. And for a final boss fight, it's not really a good behavior to have.
Could be worse, I guess. Could have used the 6-axis.
Well, to be honest, Jova, for how fucked up that controller was, the 6-axis still worked.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around exactly what the 6-axis even was.
Horizon. Infamous Second Son on the PS4, and it has this mechanic where Delsin, the protagonist, will spray graffiti with a spray paint, and the game literally tells you to turn the DualShock in a vertical position in order to simulate a kind of spray, and to pull R2 as like the trigger, like you want to use to spray, a paint can. It's a nice idea on paper, but it's actually very awkward to pull off because the controller is not shaped like a cylinder. So of course, actually holding that thing, in vertical is a bit weird.
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot of people complain about the 6-axis controller.
It's not so much complaining. It's more like, why? It's functional, but it's gimmicky.
What would you say was the worst implementation whatsoever?
I'll say later. Hold on. In this other corner, Miguel fighting the Peter CEO with a special armor and a clear ripoff of the help me out, Jova. What are the robots, the specific name of the robots that Alistair's might creates?
Spider Slayers.
I can answer you that, Jova, but don't wait for this.
Again, such an interesting concept in Evil Peter Parker. We barely focused on that.
So I guess I'll have to.
That's a stupid line.
Yep.
Again, no explanation on how the time screen.
Okay, the fight against the CEO is much better compared to the one of Atrocity because it's not really a puzzle. It's more like a traditional boss fight. You have to study his attacks, learn how to bait him into these portals where where the tentacles of Atrocity spawn because they can. There you go, and starts waiting on him, but it will not be useful for long as a tactic, so you will have to change your strategy. Again, it's much better compared to the one with Atrocity, to be honest. But go on, Pedro.
I can definitely tell you, Jova, that as far as I'm concerned, and I seriously challenge anyone to find me a worse use of the 6-axis, is who better than the master of incompetence, David Cage himself, to do it.
Heavy Rain.
Yes, in Heavy Rain, there's a trophy. Remember the bear trial, aka when you have to drive a car against the traffic for like 5 miles. Well, there's a trophy for that chapter where you're supposed to do that chapter perfectly. Like you have to dodge everything. You have to perfectly not hit the cops' cars. Like it's literally a perfect run of that chapter, basically. Here's the problem. There's one. Even if you go out of your way to train and memorize that entire chapter, there's a problem. There's one specific input that involves you not hitting the cop cars that you will fail over and over and over until you look it up and realize that apparently the controls for some reason are reversed in that input. As in, instead of moving your controller left like it tells you to, you're supposed to move it right. I have no idea how the hell that thing hasn't been patched even on the PS4 port. I don't know if the PC version fixed it. I'm guessing not. But yeah, there you go. A six-axis thing where
I can say this, but first let me mention. Okay, mention aside. I actually, to me, about the soundtracks, the boss fight against the CEO Peter, the other track is called, I think, Receipt Fight or something like that. It's my favorite of the entire soundtrack. If you ever plan on listening, look forward especially to that one. But I can tell you this, Peter, because as someone who actually has played the next section, I agree with that. But in the true nature of David Cage, that section is still very forgiving, because even if you cup sometimes, you can still survive it. It's a matter of, the challenge comes from, trying to perfect it for the trophy. Heavenly Sword doesn't give you that luxury. There are several sections where a character will fire a projectile and you need to use the 6-axis in order to control its trajectory in a perfect way, otherwise you fail.
That is fine too.
Some of these missions are also time-based, meaning that you can't fuck up at all.
I get that too, but do you have a moment in Heavenly Sword where you're supposed the game tells you to do the input a certain way, but you're actually supposed to do it the opposite way that it's telling you to do?
If you forget to turn off or backward the X and Y vertical axis option, I guess so.
Well, yeah, if there's an option to prevent that from happening, then I don't count it as bad. Sorry.
Alright then. But in the meantime, yes, now in order to make the atrocity boss fight even more harder, now the entire floor is radiation. Yes, this is Spider-Man Age of Timing, the floor is radiation.
Shovel Knight did this better.
With radiation?
Well, more like he did it better with,
The only thing I can think of, Jova, may be the boss fight against the Enchantress, where at some point she summons temporary platforms, but that's it. Even Propeller Knight, it's still platforms that you could use.
Oh god, I'm thinking of that other knight. Oh god. The one in the snow area? What's
Polar
his name?
Knight?
Yeah, Polar Knight, yeah, where he makes the 4 spikes.
True, but those are temporary. It still gives you some platforms to use. Again, it doesn't, remove the entire screen.
Well, it's sort of like that here, where some bits do temporarily open up for you to land on. Either that, or it's just bad rendering.
Oh god, this game should be called Spider-Man Edge of Conscience, because I'm so bored that I'm at serious danger of losing my conscience watching this piece of garbage.
Trust me, Pedro, it's better to watch than it is to play. Because
no, I imagine that, but it's just the fact that watching it is boring.
I speedrun this entire shit. At this point, I was seriously just wanting to get...
Have I missed anything?
Oh, so...
Basically,
on one corner, Dweeb's Peter is fighting Atrocity, on the other, Miguel is fighting the evil CEO.
So you're like me...
We actually did get some nice insight on CEO.
At the end of Rise of Rome, I guess so.
Not just that, too. Also in the climax of Blue Dragon, where I even specifically stated that at that point I was just so sick of the fucking game that I just wanted to end it.
True, but were you speedrunning the game at that point?
Basically, yeah. I said in the commentary too, I'm just gonna try and skip all the enemies because I'm so tired of this game already.
Well, what I mean is that we were playing the game for 5 hours straight at that point.
True. Oh, that no, trust me. I was sick of recording the playthrough, and I was sick of the game of playing. But I was also sick of playing the game and recording. I assure you, I was sick. And even watching that game bores me and gets me tired. Anyway, cutscene.
There we go. Basically, removing more of the tentacles.
Yeah. Oh, so it's like the final boss of Gears 4, huh?
Good to know, I guess. And there you go. This is actually the most challenging part of the group of the final boss fights, because now you have to trick CEO Peter into being attacked by one of the tentacles, and it's not easy at all.
So,
and CEO Peter deals a lot of damage actually. So with Miguel's limited health pool, you need to stay very close to his movements.
So basically, CEO Peter is now Gary Oldman from Lost in Space.
Kind of. Yes, he's not literally a biological Spider-Man. He's just attached to a spider's layer like armor. Which I guess, yeah, it's a good point. Before the plot twist about the CEO, I was actually hoping he would have turned out to be Alistair's might, because it actually fits more with the idea of being secretly the CEO of Alchemax and being the twist villain and all.
You weigh a lot of people, Smite. Must be tough when you're on vacation.
So where's the part where he turns into a giant monster then?
I'm not even kidding, Shiro. Basically, one of my favorite lines from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon is where Alistair Smythe, which is a villain he traps Peter, and he talks about, you guys are all gonna pay. You, Harry Osborn, Norman Osborn, and I forgot which other people he mentioned. It's been a while since I've seen it.
He mentioned Kingpin.
Kingpin, yeah, he mentioned Well, it's been a while since I've seen it.
Hold on. Wasn't he working for Kingpin at the time
of
that?
But Kingpin, in true fashion, betrays him near the end, and
I know that.
as soon as that, Alistair gets a huge revenge boner.
I know that. I'm talking about Nickel when he said that particular line, though. I'm trying to remember if he was working for Kingpin at that time.
At that time he was, yes, because the Kingpin said that, Spider-Man killed your father, with my help we'll get revenge and shit. But anyway, yeah, it's been a while since I forgot these specific people that he mentioned, but yeah, it was like, you all are gonna pay, and then Peter's like, you hit a lot of people, Smythe. Must be tough when you're on vacation. But my favorite is later when he has both Peter and Jonah trapped together, and he has a bomb tying them together, and like, can't you do something to get us out of this? And Peter's like, you want to separate from me, Jonah? I understand, but I'm sad.
Honestly, okay. 90s Spider-Man had quite possibly some of the best snark I've seen.
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
the best quips, yeah.
Again,
it's also Christopher Daniel Brown's delivery in general, even for something relatively simple and stupid, when he says like robots. I hate robots.
Yeah, my favorite one, Jova, from that scene is actually when Jonah first comes in and Smythe betrays.
Sorry, Joe. Sorry, better to mention this. Now the boss fight against Atrocity is essentially over, because he cannot actually damage you without the tentacles. He's too slow. So what you need to do instead
throw him into the death zone.
Yeah, you need to punch him until he reaches the portal. What a pathetic excuse! Until the very end, the game pads even the final boss fight.
Now that I think about it, this is basically the DPC death zone. Yeah, it is.
I mean, I guess in some sense they're trying to make you feel so awesome by punching him towards the portal.
It is for the first 2 minutes. It gets very boring.
Like I said, the problem is that by this point in the game, you just want this thing over. Like, seriously, the game has padded its story and its gameplay out so much.
First portion of a final boss fight is over. There we go.
Monster Master Maximus. I thought it too, I thought it too, Peter. I wish this game was over, Peter, yeah.
It's still out of control. You need to lock it down on your end. And if you do...
And somehow pushing CEO me.
They didn't even have a plan.
Sorry, Taylor, but I'm going for what.
Wait, listen to this. So yeah, apparently somehow this will overwrite the timeline by pushing him in there.
Control the energy. Just as I think.
So basically, for this final boss portion of the boss fight, CEO Peter, you still need to do some damage, but then CEO Peter will position himself on top of the portal, and you will need to throw him there. Believe me, I just lucked out because I actually didn't know how to push him. I think the idea was when you start charging an attack, you need to jump on some debris and then hit him, but the game doesn't make it clear at all. Anyway, go on, Pedro.
I love my favorite quip from that scene, Jove, is when Jonah first comes in and Smythe betrays him and traps him, and Jonah's like, "Well, what is this? What does this mean? What is the meaning of this?" And Peter's like, "It's obvious. He wants a mate, and you've been chosen."
I'm so looking forward to when we commented on that series, despite the shame that it had to end with a cliffhanger ending. I guess it's not the
Well,
worst of cliffhanger endings, since it at least ends on something of a high note.
But isn't Spider-Man the 2000 game kind of a little thing, sort of related to it?
A bit, yeah.
I guess we could say it is. So, okay, I guess we could say it has a happy ending in the end.
Well, mind you, that's the thing though. The guy who voiced Spider-Man in Spider-Man Unlimited is the voice of him in the 2000 game.
Huh.
Okay, now very good. You see, now he's on the last, it's on his last leg, but I actually don't know how to reach him. I guess he was supposed to jump when there is a ban on him. So, but don't worry, I think I get it this time. Just don't know how.
It's not over until the fat lady sings, he said earlier. Like, sorry, Teo, I'm gonna have to bring in Castafiore to start singing. If anything, this fucking thing will be over.
Please no. There are not enough alternate timelines for me to handle that.
What's wrong with Castafiore?
It's not a good stereotype, if I had to say. There we go. Mind you, Jova, it's relatively harmless as stereotypes goes. She's just, annoying.
Let's just say, Jova, the creator of Tintin is not very, he's not very racially aware and stereotypically aware.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, not to that, compared to other countries that have been representing Tintin, she's not that problematic. But anyway, hold on, time for the ending. It looks away. Fuck you, Miguel.
No, you're probably wondering,
Awesome.
how does this fix anything?
Cool,
Like,
guys, don't look
okay,
at explosions. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, just a
MGS3
question,
did this better, you pleb. Go ahead.
Alright, time
Whatever.
to see the... Hold on. Okay, so how much this game has been, compelling about story, the ending must be rich and, deep and all, right?
You know what happened? How do you and I remember? I mean, we've got two different sets of memories in our brains. Shouldn't that be making us, I don't know, crazy?
Crazy? We already dress in skin-tight costumes and
That's a
fight bad guys.
TMNT quip. Why do you do that?
You really want a 5-hour lecture on temporal paradoxes?
Sure.
I don't know, maybe to make sense of his story.
Have all the time in the world.
Maybe not 5 hours, but
And that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I tell a small lie because the first portion of the credits actually do have Miguel start explaining to him the quantum mechanics and time travel. So there is that.
Well, actually, the first major theoretical studies were done by Reed Richards, which...
Oh, great, Reed
They
Richards.
actually remember the Fantastic Fours.
That's not really ironic. That's just.
it's not the Reed Richards that abandons his friends, is it?
what it's come to.
Right.
At this point, I guess he has done that in
You
all
know-
the timelines.
Studies.
I can't believe it.
Actually, that's a good segue because basically, Lives, you've been seeing Rick and Morty, right?
Dead center of the
No.
description can
Oh, okay. Basically, one element in that, the Council of Rick, is kind of a jab at a plot point that Marvel did at some point called the Council of Reeds, where basically all alternate universe version of Reed Richards actually found a common place in a nexus between the alternate versions and started planning on how to do things to improve better the world. It was very stupid, and they literally destroyed a couple of issues in. Okay, that's it. Final thoughts, Lips.
It was certainly a Spider-Man game.
Was it?
Spider-Man was in it. Or two of them.
Two, yeah.
There were villains that you fight from his world. It has a plot, as erratic as it is.
Dweb's not for nothing. We want your thoughts on the game, not the description on the back of the box.
But that's my problem. That's the problem. I can't really. That's all I could. That's all I could manage really for this thing. I mean, the music's fine. Imagine that on the back of the box. The
There you go,
music's
see?
fine.
This is what I meant. We calculated the height of a building. Apparently it's even higher.
Kevin
It's,
Feige
it's
was
apparently
involved.
it's apparently higher 7.2 kilometers minimum.
Gee.
Wow.
It's
They knew we
Yeah,
were
Kevin
curious.
Feige was involved with this, as Dwibs noticed.
really the best thing about this game was that the voice cast did a really good job with what they had.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, what they had wasn't very good. I mean, it was sort of. I mean, it was all right at first, but then it just started to. I think, well, the padding certainly didn't help. It just dragged really, and the ending was really abrupt. It was like I was watching a Bay Formers movie. Yeah, with this abrupt endings, you know what I mean. Gameplay wise, it looks fine. If there's nothing special really. But I mean, having played Spider-Man 2018, this just doesn't really hold up in comparison. I mean, it's not necessarily this game's fault. It's just I just can't help it really.
Also,
Well, I'd say it's very much this game's fault. Get it? Because we were hinting at that with Shattered Dimensions, but didn't follow through. Oops.
Yeah, because our writer forgot.
Well, it was literally made a year before this game.
I know, Joe, but there's been plenty of sequels.
Also,
that came out
executive
just a year
meddling. We already cut the 2 Spider-Man already, so.
And honestly, there have been plenty of sequels that only came out not too long after the previous one, and they've been better. And I mean, I can't even remember what half the villains did in this game. I mean,
that's one of the
time
problems
time travel. Somehow time travel is going to fix everything, according to
That's also a problem with the fact that compared to Shadow Dimension, there's a serious villain starvation in this game.
Yeah, like,
and video games are like the only medium that I'm aware of where having multiple villains can actually be of an advantage to you.
Not just that, the
I've seen plenty of movies that can work with multiple
Spider-Man games have consistently had a gajillion villains in them and managed to work them somehow. Never wear a tie again.
That last board says it all, though. Was Sloan even really the villain, or was he just a lackey?
The war may never know.
What, Jeff? What, the last tab sums it up, never wear a tie again.
No. The one that was before that.
Spider, I guess.
I mean, I'll agree with that one. Never wear ties. Those things
Never fight a land war in Asia.
Yeah. So yeah, there we are. That's the most I got out of this game. Not wearing a tie.
I think my favorite blackboard one was the one that showed MJ plus Peter equals love. See, even Beanox know that one more day doesn't know what the hell
it was Peter
about.
David wanted to be cute. Remember that sequence where Miguel saves her from the elevator concludes with them taking a jab at One More Day.
Oh yeah, I mean, hell, a lot of writers hated One More Day. Even the guy who wrote it himself.
Before I ask before I ask the final thoughts to the others, let's take a look at the newspapers we have been collected. Basically, they tied between the normal timeline and the 2099, and they're cute, references to both Spider-Man and other anarchy villains. For example, Kingpin indicted multiple charges, but in the Alchemax timeline, Wilson Fix buys Daily Bugle.
Cute.
Alistair's mind, leads the prison breakout normally, but instead, it leads a scientific breakthrough. Or I have an Alchemax timeline. Professor Mendel Strom unleashes robot attack.
Oh hey, Norman's old partner.
Signs exclusive contract with Alchemist. I forgot actually who it became.
Basically, guys, you know that guy who Norman kills in the Spider-Man movie when he becomes the Green Goblin? Yeah, in the comics, that guy becomes a secret.
Yes.
In the comics, that guy becomes a villain himself.
Wait for this one. Titaniums were made for mayor. J. Jonah Jameson buys mayor to race. Get it? There's Hammerhead, of course. Opens line of Excel hat stores.
Okay, these are some of these are actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again,
from Power, of course. Well, Ice presidential run. No, please, thank you.
Again, that's what we could have used more of, honestly. Seeing how the world actually changes instead of just being stuck in the building.
You went
Cra-
Secretary General.
Yep.
Police ask, who is Mr. Negative?
I wonder.
Martin Lee awarded Peace Prize.
Philanthropist.
Yes.
He's an asshole.
Vulture
Vulture
takes
takes
wing and
In
crime spree.
Adrian Tools found new chicken with. And he looks like Patrick Stewart in that.
Wow.
Rhino Rampage is from Midtown, of course. Triumphs in Demolition. Okay, that I will actually love to see.
Again, there's so much of this cool stuff I would have loved to have seen.
Mysterio threats director Spider-Man.
Mysterio
Mysterio direct Spider-Man 5.
Oh my god. You know what's funny? He's actually kind of doing that in the comics currently.
Scorpion on bank robbery rampage.
This is all
Scorpion
stuff we could have
aids in
seen.
police sting.
Oh yeah. A bit of backstory. Scorpion actually was he was a private eye.
That illustration, by the way, was referenced to Jack Kirby.
Sinister Six, and they disbanded.
In the Alchemax timeline, actually.
Jameson Sr. May Parker winning a social event of the season.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Jameson Sr. Betty Brant winning.
Ew.
Oh
Here
my.
we go.
Flash Thompson tapped the Veterans Affairs post. Flash Thompson to coach Jersey football team. Police Captain Gene DeWolf murdered.
Oh, I forgot who
yeah.
who she
Police
is.
Commissioner Gene. Okay.
I don't remember
what's
who she is,
What's the
actually.
difference?
Maybe.
Comedians believed responsible for Middle East unrest. Comedian to host new game show. Who am I?
Awesome. Figures Gene DeWolf stays murdered in
I
both
think that's it.
continuities.
And also something
Yeah.
that they didn't
The
show
best part
in the
of this
Shadow
game
Dimension,
is
some of the costumes. For example, Flipside. I think it was like a robotic clone of Miguel.
This is kind of the sad thing, though. The best thing about this time travel...
The Iron Spider, this is the costume that Peter wore in the comic book version of Civil War. The Spider Armor, that's the classic one from the... there you go, that's also shown in the 90s cartoon. The Cosmic Spider-Man, the imbued by the Unipower.
Oh, yeah, when he became Mr. Universe.
And there are also some that I couldn't show, like the big time alternate suit. Let's see. This was the bombastic Bagman, of course.
Yes.
Basically a spare Fantastic Four costume. Another version of the Cosmic Spider-Man.
Captain Universe.
The Scarlet Spider costume, which is really cool. Worn by Ben Reilly. A Secret War Spider-Man. An event from the mid-2000s, I think, still. Yeah. Basically, where Spider-Man and a couple others went to Latveria in order to, as a cover-up mission, in order to arrest the Latvian ruler, because Dr. Doom wasn't around there at that time. Well, basically, there are a bunch of other alternate costumes that you can unlock by finishing the game in different modes. But yeah, you can also potentially fight as the civilian outfit of the evil CEO and his armor, actually, battle armor. So I guess,
Minus the spider legs, of course.
yeah. So I guess it keeps cool at traditional Shadow Dimensions. But anyway,
That's the sad thing, though. The best thing about this time traveling plot is only in the special features.
not just that, and you need to use it to play a game that it's not really fun to play when you get down to it. Anyway, Shiroi.
That was pretty meh, honestly. It seemed like a real drag for you to actually go through.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the plot?
I mean, it was pretty predictable, all things considered.
Yeah, that's right. You were the only one to mainly guess that it was going to be Peter who was the CEO.
Well, Pedro
The
managed
setup
to
was
do it
right
well, but
about a
there.
couple of
Changed his
seconds
guess.
after.
But why didn't we get any of the fun stuff in these papers here?
I know. Well,
They were all happening while this was going on.
Here's
Yeah.
the easy answer. We spend the entire goddamn plot in one building.
Yeah, again, that's the thing that
It's a very tall building, Jova, so it's no
Yeah, that's the
It's
thing
not
that
even,
boggles
it's not even
me.
like Die Hard, where it's fun.
That's the thing that boggles me the most. You take Spider-Man out of its comfort zone and confine him in a closed space.
Yeah.
Like,
Why?
there's being bold, and then there's just being
No,
stupid.
Java,
and
there's being
handicapping.
bold and brash, and then there's it belongs in the trash. Anyway, continue.
That's it, really. This existed.
Yay.
Alright, Pedro.
Pedro?
The story is nonsensical and boring. The gameplay is bad and boring. The graphics look ugly and boring, and the soundtrack is kind of it's fine, but this composer is capable of better. The end.
Java.
I cannot muster any more words.
Oh boy, this game. Again, I'm not going to act like Shattered Dimension was an amazing game by any stretch, but it was still a pretty good game that worked with its concept relatively well. People just gave, some bouts of critique to help it play like a better Spider-Man game. This feels like going in the complete opposite direction on so many ways. Like, the only thing that's really an improvement, I'd say, is some tiny minor gameplay details and the fact that the Spider-Man gets to interact. And even then, it's not like their interactions are that great unless you really, 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 really love constant bickering here and there. But yeah, other than that, let's talk about the negatives here. Less universes. Okay, so I guess we are pretty much confirming that 616 and 2099 are of the same continuity. Okay, you know what? Fine enough there. But again, that leaves us with only 2 Spider-Man. Never mind the fact that we had a clear cliffhanger with Spider-Ham in the last game, but nah, we's gonna forget that. Lack of villains.
I always thought that was just more of a nice little wink reference.
Well, it was them hinting at stuff, and basically, Dwebs, I'll let you in on a secret, but a lot of people were excited to get to potentially play as Spider-Ham.
Nah, I didn't really see it.
Well, that's you. I'm talking about a lot of people.
If you've seen Into the Spider-Verse, you know that he's capable of fighting in his own way.
Yeah.
Well, that was like years away, though.
Well, Dwibs, even still, there were comic books. I know that, you may not read them, but a lot of people do. And like I said, a lot of people were excited for the potential. There is a world outside the Harley bloodline.
Did I say it?
Actions speak louder than words. Anyway, going back to my final thoughts, the music it's there. There's some that I do like, but it feels like they replay certain ones a little too much. And you know what's sad? The music that was playing during the free-falling sections? Now, that music sounded like something that would fit better for the actual climax here. Like, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of how the final boss tune sounds like. It to me, it just comes off as a bit bland here and there. The story, when it's not being padded out, is sensical. Or like I said, it misses such blatant potential. It hurts. Seriously, you have literally a time-traveling pod, but barely anything that really matters changes in the long run here and there. Peter is still pretty much the same, and it's never even really explained that much well how Peter goes on to become the evil CEO guy. And even then, CEO Peter is apparently going to be dead, so does that mean that Peter is still going to turn evil and then eventually die? Or is he now going to be a good guy? Again, nothing's really explained. Heck, for that matter, shouldn't evil Peter have known he would do this before if he somehow becomes him too? Now, you could say alternate timelines, but that's... Except that would completely...
It's like that clip from Star Trek Next Generation. I hate temporal mechanics.
Here's the problem, though. You can't say alternate timelines because that would contradict how time travel has worked throughout this entire game. Because, the whole quantum causality thing. This game is pretty much run on the mentality that the past does, in fact, infect the future directly. So that would mean that evil CEO Peter had to come from the same timeline, which means, how are we going to prevent Peter from becoming evil? Never explained.
Because shut up, that's why.
Yeah.
And God, this game can get downright mean-spirited at times, especially with how Peter acts, how both the Spider-Men act towards each other, but also certain points when Peter goes, "Oh, it's because I'm Spider-Man that everything bad happens. I should abandon my timeline."
In general, Java, the mentality, hey, you guys wanted the Spider-Man to actually interact with each other? There you go. Now they can bicker and be bitter at each other. I hope you're happy.
Not only that, this feels like a plot that hates comic book heroes. Like, I mean, there is like little to no fun in this.
The only
It's-
positive again, Jova, is the fact that Peter David doesn't like One More Day. Thanks, I agree. I'm glad we're on the same length. Now, can you please lighten up?
But yeah, again, this plot feels like it embarrasses itself with how it tries to act quote unquote more adult. Or yeah, congrats, you are technically acting more mature, but as a result, you are kind of acting more boring here and there too. Again, say what you will about Shared Dimensions, at least we got to see some weird and wacky stuff here. For a time travel plot, this stuff's pretty mundane, all things considered. Yes, that's even counting the quantum causality factors that we see. Again, it's a Spider-Man game where you spend the entire plot in one building, no outdoor sections whatsoever, so no free web slinging. Jesus, do you not realize the problems leaping off at you right off the clipboard when you were at the drawing board on this one, guys?
And like I mentioned earlier, it's not even like Die Hard where the stuff in the big building is exciting.
True, yeah. And again, I think what hurts the most is just the wasted potential on display here. So many good story element ideas, like an evil CEO Peter in and of itself is cool, but those newspapers right there showed a lot of potential plot lines we could have seen in the affected future here and there. But nah. Granted, maybe this has to do with the fact that this game was probably rushed since it only came out a year after Shattered Dimensions. So maybe the writing's on the wall there. But all the same, though, man, everything about this game is such a disappointment. And this is definitely the start of when Beanox were when Beanox's reputation started to go down a bit, let's just say, which will culminate with Amazing Spider-Man 2. But more on that at a later time. For now, like I said, this game is just a disappointment of a successor here. And that's being nice. Alright, Tio, close us out.
Alright, pretty much what Jova said. This is just a disappointment after Shadow Dimension. Mind you, I don't think it's the worst Spider-Man game, but it's still such a chore to play. It has a very strong idea and a strong start, in my opinion, but immediately it slips on a banana peel and just tumbles around, and it just does. It's actually a good parallel. It's a slapstick where you just want it to go on so you can have a laugh, but instead it keeps fumbling around for 5 hours. And you just want it to end, but it doesn't because all of this fucking padding. Seriously. And in general, the animosity of the script, in general, I don't consider Peter David a bad writer. He has done pretty much good things in his resume. Just to understand what happened here. Was the executive meddling, the rashness, stuff like maybe something similar, an external factor? I don't know. I guess this should be a topic I should ask Madman Muscle to make a video about it. Still, this was still a disappointment at the end of the day, plain and simple. I cannot defend it up at a certain point. But anyway, that's pretty much it. So, see you for the next Spider-Man game. If I manage to get my hands on a copy, I guess it would be Web of Shadows, or maybe the other PS1 game, Enter Electro, or maybe the PS4 game. Who knows? See you for that.
Ta-ta.
See ya.
See ya.